So the hashtag, ladies and gentlemen, is the perfect budget. What really is the opposition complaining about? Do they even have any complaints? And has this last full budget of the Modi government before the key elections of 2024 actually left everyone stunned? Because there is something for everyone, like the Prime Minister says. My colleagues Shavan and Abhishek both with us. As I say good evening to our panel of guests that you'll see on your screens in just a bit. Rajneesh Kumar is the chairman of Bharat Pay and former chairman of the State Bank of India, is an important voice on the entire issue. And we also have two political participants, Mohammad Salim ji, who's a senior leader of the CPIM. He's a former MP also of the Lok Sabha, joining us on the broadcast from Kolkata. Also Vivek, spokesperson of the Samajwadi Party. And we are also waiting to be joined by Gopal Krishna Agarwal of the BJP in just a moment. So let's take the first question to the opposition, Mohammad Salim and Vivek. Let's, in fact, get the first opportunity to Vivek. Vivek, you're representing the Samajwadi Party. I want to know today, what will you complain about? The capex has gone up. There is a clear thrust about women empowerment, about poor. You're looking at major allocation coming into the infrastructure sector, to railways. So will you congratulate the government for putting out what we are calling hashtag the perfect budget?
Very good evening to all of you. First of all, we have been hearing such type of budget since the Modi government has come into power, you know. And today, what actually I feel this budget is not more, it's just not more than a prank actually. Because the actual fact is when in 2014 and 15, the Modi government came into power, the loan on Indian economy was about 55,000 crore rupees. And if we see today, the loan has gone up to 1,55,000 crore. That is incredibly shocking, because as far as the GDP has increased, we don't deny from that. But the loan and debt from India is around 83% of the GDP, which should be around 64% for a good economy. So that is the problem. And today, false promises and fake speeches won't help India. We have been seeing for this for time and time again. As exports have been given preferences today, no relief on diesel, petrol and LPG, nothing for the unemployed. If we see today's market, what happened? Initially, the market started about 3,000, it rose up about 300 points and went up to 1,200 points. But at the end of the day, it actually crashed, just because people thought this budget is going to be very good for the country. But at the end of the day, it was not like that, not at all. Manufacturing sector, nothing substantial. I talk about Uttar Pradesh today because I belong to Uttar Pradesh. No budget for the expressways, nothing for the power plants. Even Prime Minister Modi in 2014, he promised the Namami Gange. He will clean the Ganges. And it has been almost 9 years now.
10 lakh crores of 10 lakh crores of capital expenditure is nothing for manufacturing? 2 lakh crores of PLI?
We talk about...
That's almost 30...
Yes, you're right there. We talk about the MSMEs today. But if you see, 90% of MSMEs are almost closed. They are finished. That is the problem with the schemes that the government is bringing.
Is this Commerce Ministry statistic, Mr. Vivek, that 90% of MSMEs are finished?
Well, it depends on how the government handles it, how the government handles the people. You can't blame the people for that. If you can blame the people for everything, then what is the need of the government? There's no need for the government,
Okay.
We talk about
there might not be. I don't know the basis of this charge that 90% of MSMEs are finished, but we are getting Mohammad Salim after a long time.
60%
we are getting to hear
closed,
Mohammad Salim joining us from Kolkata after a long time. Let's try to understand from you, sir. Is there any ideological basis from the left communist thought based on which you would want to oppose this budget?
The government has lost the opportunity. This has been the last budget of this government for this term, and after the 2 years of pandemic, we have lost so many things, not only so many lives. So to rejig the economy and to revamp the economy on the job sector, employment sector, this budget is not showing any path. Secondly, the huge expenditure that is needed for infrastructure and government spending. In fact, if you take the real GDP in term, then you will find there is no increase but lesser amount for this. It's a contraction. And I know the limit is because to reduce the budget deficit, the government has no other way than contraction of the expenditure. So that in turn is not going to generate the domestic market, the domestic demands. Now the need was pump money into the market and pump money into the hands of the people, create jobs, expenditure increase, and so that the demand is increased. That will help our manufacture sector and service sector. So government has not gone through that. The devil lies in the details. The speech is okay, very good. Everybody touches everything. But we have listened all these khatabai thing for so many years. But where is the budgetary support? This year, when the education and health is in poor condition, the government have not spent the money allocated last year. And there is reduction of food, fuel and fertilizer subsidy. So when hunger is growing, you require more food and cheaper food, the purchasing capacity is going down. Of course, there is a good thing that for salaried income, after 9 years, there is an increase. But for 9 years, you have to wait. So from 5 lakh to 7 lakh, if you give it, so per annum, it is around not more than 25,000. So in that case, you give from one hand, you take it back in 3 hands. So, your transportation cost, your food, your medicine is costlier. So what you are going to give? The government is busy just protecting their corporate friends.
Mr. Rajneesh, if I can, Mr. Mohammed Salim, we'll get into the brass tacks of it, and perhaps as we elucidate a little bit more on what everyone gets, perhaps you would get a better answer to that. But let me bring in Mr. Rajneesh right now. Mr. Rajneesh, when I talk about the capital investment, we're looking at a 33% increase. When we're looking at the outlay for the railways, is the capital outlay, it's almost like over 2.84 lakh crore rupees. And overall, if you really look at how the government is looking at right now, while the opposition says that Minorities Affairs Department, there is a slash. But if you look at the macroeconomics of it, it's very clear that there is a roadmap that is for job creation, railways being one of the largest. Then you're looking at the manufacturing sector. So all of this with the single agenda that job creation increases over a period of time.
Yeah, so let me clarify that I am not into any political debate. But the point which you are making about the infrastructure-led growth, then I think there is a certain consistency in what the government has been doing. And even if I look at the expenditure part committed last year, 100% amount has been spent, which is not a mean achievement. So jobs gets created when investment happens, and everybody knows that the multiplier effect is maximum when there is an investment in the infrastructure. And the progress, at least in the road sector, railways, airports, the progress is visible. And that would mean that the more country invests into build-up of the infrastructure, it could be physical infrastructure, which I am mentioning, as well as the social infrastructure, which would mean more schools, more institutions. So that all, every rupee invested, that creates impact. Now, the other is that the demand creation. So I think even after 9 years, the relief which has been given in the income tax, that would create more demand because there is more money available in the hands of the income tax. But as I said, that I am looking at purely from the point of view of an ex-banker and not part of this political debate.
Okay. Okay, Rajneeshji reiterating there, and obviously he is the only non-political, person right now on the panel. And I think what he says should make sense to both our opposition friends here, Mohammad Salim and also, Vikas, who have problems with how the budget has been presented. But it's the opposition's job, to find faults, Abhishek and Shravan, with the budget, and they will do this. But, I think there are questions also that can be asked to the BJP. Mr. Agarwal, now, through the day today, one big headline is also about the relief that has been given to the salaried class, in terms of the changes in the income tax slab. But then a lot of people say, and a lot of our viewers are asking, that is this, mere lip service? Because why haven't indirect taxes then be tinkered with? And also the other question they are asking is that, is this being done generally with an idea to push more people, to push the salaried class towards the new regime? And why has the government not been able to release data of these people who've migrated from the old to the new regime yet?
No, therefore, those who are objecting that the government is trying to push to the new regime of taxation, they should understand that there is nothing unclear about it. The government has said that the new tax regime is simpler and it is easy for people to understand and implement. And the tax slabs also are lower. The thing is that in the new scheme, any person earning less than 7 lakh of annual income, there is no tax, zero tax. And even over and above that, there are differential tax slabs which are as low as 5%. And the government has also given an option to people that those who want to continue with the old scheme, they can do. So this option is an additional benefit. Anybody who want to continue with the old regime, he is very well, he can go in the old regime also, continue in the old regime. And those who want to come to the new scheme, they can come. So this option is always better. And the second thing is, very clearly FM has said that the new regime is simpler, easier, better, and therefore it is the default scheme. So there is nothing in this that the government is subvertly trying to push people to the new scheme. Second thing is, we should understand that in spite of all the pressure on our government to get more revenue from the people, increase taxation, you see the narration of many people in the Economist and other things. They were saying that government should look into new taxes. Should the government go for wealth tax or go for any other kind of taxes, transaction tax, etc.? The government has completely desisted from putting up any new tax, and even we have reduced the personal income tax. That's an important aspect. And in spite of all this, no expenditure, whether in the social welfare scheme or the agriculture sector, women empowerment, youth empowerment, or even in the capex, no expenditure has been reduced. And that's the beauty of this budget, that without increasing any tax, direct or indirect, and even reducing the personal income tax, the government has been able to generate resources for the growth and development and welfare of the people. And
so, Agarwalji, I think it's important then quickly to get an opposition counter to that before we go back to Rajneeshji. Vivek, Gopal Krishna Agarwal says, listen, you must congratulate us because, in these difficult times, it's a government that has given relief to the salaried class. So this essentially means there'll be more money in their pockets, and clearly, this will boost consumption. The second thing he says, we haven't levied any new tax. Isn't that important? Because had the government done that, Vivek, you would have, be crying horse, saying, Sarkar ne ek naya tax laga diya, aam aadmi ka boj aur badha diya. So today, shouldn't you be congratulating the government on this, Vivek?
No, I can just say at the moment, ma'am, that per capita income of... Mr. Agarwal, please let me speak. Yeah. The per capita income of every individual in India has increased. I don't deny from that. But the thing is, what about the inflation? The prices that are exorbitant at the moment. People are just unable to handle their houses. Household, it's shaking because if you see the essential commodities, if you see the health expenditures and the education for the children are soaring up like hell. We talked about railways, airports, and ports, but we all know that eventually it's going going to be given to the tycoons. You know, you have given, you might give, you can give, you have given a budget for the railway for 2.5 lakh crores. Okay, fine. You can give it for 5 lakh crores. But eventually what is going to happen? The airports are going to industrialize them. The ports are going to them. The railways are going to them. You know,
See, this
the
is called
problem of
fear mongering,
you
Shavan.
know,
Exactly, this is called fear mongering because you clearly do not have data to support that. And for the sake of criticism, Mohammad Salim ji, you will go and criticize the government because he's not able to tell us what is the allocation for the Jal Jeevan mission that is at a 70,000 crore. Not even for the PM Awas Yojana that has seen a significant increase, Mohammad Salim ji, that is 79,000 crore. Major increase in allocation for schemes for the poor, whether it's about housing, whether it's about clean drinking water, whether it's about Ayushman Bharat.
Now the question is, good that some repeats of the PIB statement I have seen or heard. But the question is Manrega. You are talking about poor peoples. So this is a decline, 33% decline in the allocation is Manrega. That is the job for the poorest of the poor, those who are seeking this job. Secondly, the decrease in from 68,000 to 60,000, the much touted Prime Minister's Kisan Fund. So what happened? Say 8,000, you have decreased. You are talking about huge expenditure. What is the total expenditure in this budget? What was the last year compared to that? If you take out the inflation and take out the debt servicing, the loan repayment, then you will find there is no increase in the total expenditure. Then where from this money they have internally generated and how they are spending? It's all jugglery. But now, no new tax, so you must thank. That is what Gopalji said. So now, we should thank that no new airports or railways have been handed over to Adani. We must thank the government. The government कुछ नहीं किया, इसलिए धन्यवाद दे देना चाहिए. अरे बाबा, you see the condition of the public transportation system. You see the railways, you go to the stations, forget about Vande Bharat. You see how the common people
but that's the reason why. That's the reason why, Mohammad Salim ji. Before we go to Rajneesh and Shavan takes that question with Rajneesh, I want to ask you this. That's the reason why there is a huge push on infrastructure, and because you're speaking about those figures, I think it's a good point to get Agarwalji's response to that. Now, Gopal Krishna Agarwalji, the Guarantee Emergency Credit Line scheme has seen a significant drop. The Pradhan Mantri Swasthya Suraksha Yojana scheme for the new AIIMS and medical colleges, there is a massive cut in funds. The opposition says that, you're just playing out half side of the story. Is that true? Because Manrega funds have also, gone down. Why hasn't the government spoken about all that?
The thing is that we should understand three important things is that the opposition ruled states are not understanding that health and education is a state subject. Center only strengthens them. Center is not the sole responsibility for health and education. With Ayushman Bharat or setting up 157 nursing colleges, hospitals at the district level, etc., putting up oxygen plants, etc., the central government is supporting and helping the state government achieve those targets. In addition to that, we are setting up a center of excellence for artificial intelligence. IITs have been set, IIMs have been set. Already NEC, many initiatives the government has taken in the education sector. So that we have to understand that in spite of being education and health the state subject, center has provided lot of money and support to these sectors, and the thing is that we are moving ahead in the sustainable development model. Second point I want to underline about Manrega and other thing is that these are based on demand scheme. If our government has allocated money to the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana to a very large extent, that will go to the rural areas, give boost to the rural economy, and give employment to the rural sectors, etc. And the schemes like Karma Yogi, where artisans and handicrafts people and those who are using tools, Vishwakarma Yojana, they are providing employment and help supporting the entrepreneurship. MSME sector has reduced got many benefits for the rural areas, and in addition to that, there are a cooperative sector is getting benefit. 81 women self-help groups have been set up. So 2 lakh cooperative organizations are being provided for. These all areas are where the government thinks that where the demand is, the government will provide. At present, Manrega, after the COVID, there was an increased demand. You have to estimate with, if you have to compare Manrega allocation, compare it with the budgeted estimate in 2021-22 and 2022-23. There you will find an increase. But in the revised estimate, at that time of frame, suddenly there was an increased requirement due to pandemic in the Manrega. We increased that. So creating a wrong narration is wrong. You should see whether the government has provided for the rural employment, youth employment, skilling them, the creating manufacturing sector, cooperative sector in the rural. All these are in support of the employment to the rural areas, even the fishermen for the coastal areas, wetland development, all these schemes will not
Okay,
help.
Agarwalji, the opposition still does not agree with you. I see Mohammed Salim wanting to intervene, but we've run out of time. But I just want to give 10 seconds, with the permission of our producer, to Rajneesh ji quickly. You know, Rajneesh ji, when you look at the picture today coming out of what the budget really has put out for the Aam Aadmi, what do you think, according to you, are the 3 key areas that the government has addressed well, and what is it that the government could have done better, sir? Just about 10 seconds for you.
The key issue is about like 3 things which I think are the highlights of this budget. One is that the fiscal deficit, revised estimate of 6.4, and then the projection of 5.9%. So this is a continuity of government's policy about fiscal prudence. Second is enhanced expenditure on the infrastructure and including higher allocation for the PM Awas Yojana, which again has a good multiplier. And third is putting more money in the hands of the people by way of reduction in the income tax. And there are many other things like emphasis on the green growth and the digitalization of the economy. So on the whole, I think government has taken care of increasing or enhancing the demand and as well as the productivity of the economy. This is my take as a bank.
Mohammed Salim, you've heard what Rajneesh had to say with regards to what are the steps that have been taken so far. And let's understand this. Traditionally, before a general election, a government tends to become a little populist. But this particular government, right from the start, had said that there are certain bitter pills that one will have to take. Prime Minister made it very, very clear back in 2014. Now, what's important to point out here is that you are basically talking about the food subsidy, which has seen about a 27% cut, a fertilizer subsidy of a 25% cut, but that has been accommodated somewhere, Mohammed Salim, in the ways that you cannot look at the prism, you cannot perhaps look at this particular budget with the prism of just the domestic needs. You need to look at the current global trends and the pressures that the government has to face, keeping in mind the global conditions.
It's good that you're saying it's a global condition. And because we have just passed on this, come through this pandemic, and now there's a global slowdown. So here is a chance for the government to boost the domestic production. For that you require to increase the domestic demands, and for that you require the public expenditure. And in that case, we find the restriction the government imposed, bitter pill, means they would have done this populist thing, because where is the resource? The government do not have. So the person who was defending BJP said that they have internal resources they have mobilized. No, it's a huge amount is going for the debt servicing. So where is the amount being spent for the infrastructure development? You are talking about water, the domestic supply for, you are talking about Awas Yojana. This government promised that twice the income of the farmers. What happened to that? You promised सबके लिए घर by 22. Now you are showing that allocation is increased. That means you have failed to fulfill your target. Similarly, for sustainable development, whatever commitment we have made internationally, domestically, we have failed to address that. It requires some genuine thoughts from the government leaders. But this finance ministry is busy in making fuel, food, fertilizer away from the common people and bringing finance to the friends of Modi. That's the beauty of this government.
But I really want to push that point a little further, Mohammed Salim, with your permission to Vivek. Vivek, because this is a government that clearly does not believe in handing out revenues. The reason why I think, yes, Gopalji, I'm just going to come back to you, but a question to Vivek, because, this is not about handing out doles, like, a lot of other parties really believe is the best way forward in dealing with any crisis. Ki crisis hai, aap logon ko paisa de dijiye. But this is a government that says, let's have a roadmap. Let's stick to fiscal discipline. Fiscal consolidation is written all over this budget. So, Vikas, I want to know, are you still one of those parties that says, inko revdi de dijiye, because that's the best way you can win an election? And, just this question that Shravan asked is also very important. The government could have been populist, but the government has decided to be prudent. Isn't that important? Because the budget is not just for this year, but the budget is for 2047.
Yes. My reply to the question is, ma'am, that when 10% of the tycoons in India would have 90% of the wealth, and the poor people who constitute about 50% of India would have only 3% of wealth, there is the problem. There is the biggest problem there. And secondly, Prime Minister Modi ji promised that we will be $5 trillion economy by the end of 2022. But by the rate which India is growing, it would take 2029 for us to reach $5,000 trillion. That is the thing. If you see what happened to the industry.
How do you know this? How do you know this? The Samajwadi Party is sitting here and making a claim. How do you know this? It's really easy, I think, when you sit in that chair, Shravan, to put out that narrative. You are the same people fear-mongering about vaccines, about almost everything. Vikas, so sit back. Sit back. People watch all this. Shravan.
Well, in fact, Gopal, if I can bring you in, your government still faces this massive criticism. Let me just quickly bring in Gopal, because one of the biggest criticism that the government today is facing with regards to slashes that have taken place in Manrega. You've also had the opposition raising this entire concern that when it comes to minority development, the allocation is far lesser. The opposition seems to be suggesting that you are taking away the focus from the rural areas of this country and from the poor, and also, in fact, in terms of minority development, the government isn't really focusing. That's the biggest criticism that you face.
I would like to say here is that when you are looking after the allocation, you have to compare it with the budgeted estimates last year, BE of last year with the current year. In that, you will not find any reduction in the allocation of any of the scheme. Second thing, that when we are talking about minority development and other thing, you will find that the biggest beneficiaries of our Swachh Bharat Abhiyan are from the minority population. Even the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana minority population has been the biggest beneficiaries. And Ayushman Bharat also, you will find them. The thing is that since independence, the minorities had been made only a vote bank and no care. Otherwise, why minorities are in the bad shape? Why minorities are not getting the fully developed? This is because they were just considered vote bank. In our 9 years of rule, now everybody is treated equally, and as their position is bad in the overall society, in the financial position, they are getting the maximum benefit of the social welfare scheme. That we have to understand. And we also want to reiterate that we have come out with a tribal development fund. It is a very important fund where tribal community will specifically benefit from the government focus. Tribals have been completely left out of the development at many places. Earlier government did not take care of them. We have clearly identified tribal development fund where a lot of funds has been allocated particularly to develop the tribal communities. We have set up accelerated agriculture development fund where rural economy will get a boost. We have set up Vishwakarma scheme where rural artisans and people who make small product like cottage industries product, etc., handloom or those products, they will get a special benefit through skilling. Their marketing support, their financial support is being. Why you ignore these schemes? Vishwakarma scheme, Karmayogi scheme, then Mishti scheme for coastal fisheries development, then there is a scheme for the wetland development, there is accelerated agriculture development schemes, completely ignoring the tribal community development fund, etc.
Agarwalji, Mohammad Salim still does not agree with you. The opposition insists this is an election budget and this is a budget that has been presented with an eye, the opposition alleges, only Abhishek and Shravan, with an eye on the big 2024 elections. But the government says this is a budget anchored in development and growth. And the perfect budget is the hashtag that we are putting out. And you, the viewer, can also tell us what you think. Which side are you on? Only for word of thank Gopal, Krishna Agarwalji, Rajneeshji, Mohammad Salim and Vikas for their time and their opinion right now on that big story. On the other side, we are back with more coverage and live action coming in on how the budget really has fared out.